Okay, David. Now you've been in the Yoruba. You're a Yoruba priest, but you've been in the religion how long?
Oh, about 40 years.
40 years. Now you're coming up with an anniversary. This would be
My
a
25th anniversary as a priest.
But before the priestdom, you
I
were.
was an Leo.
What does LAO mean?
Leo is the person who's uninitiated.
But they have an interest in the in the religion, and they sort of hang out.
They receive some perhaps they receive some equipment. Like elekes, and they may have the beads, and they may have received the equipment of Ogun, like Ogun and Ochosi and Osu. Just for them to start working.
Now, I don't want to go into too details with defining everything, whatever have you, but it's a curious thing because most religions have relationships and situations. And I was just wondering, especially as I understand it, in the Yoruba religion, this comes from West Africa and it's traveled through Brazil and then...
Actually, Ifa is the overall. Ifa would be the overall name. And the Yorubas practice Ifa as the rest of the planet, because it became a world religion in 2006, recognized by the United Nations. Yes, and then we had a Yoruba Day here in New York State and Brooklyn actually last 2 weeks ago by the borough president and whatnot. And the only Ife was here from Ife, and Ifeanyi was here from Osogbo last week.
Okay, wait, now you do have to define the Ife from Nigeria.
Ifa is what the religion is called, Ifa being the word of God. Rumila, the Orisha Orumila is the owner, progenitor of Ifa, of the word of God.
Now, when you talk about Orishas, that is defined as aspects of God?
Those, for me, they're different aspects of God.
Okay.
It means selected heads. Selected heads.
Okay, so you're recognized worldwide finally, after how many years? How many centuries?
2,000 years, how many years?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Well, I have one burning question, then we can go back to other things that you want. But it seems like anything else, there are relationships. So in a sense, it's almost, I don't want to say a pecking order, that's a cheap way of putting it, but there's some
It's
sort
a hierarchy.
That's what I meant, hierarchy. So there are people in hierarchies have personalities, they have problems, they have da-da. And as we get on in the world, there's all kinds of things. How do you prevent yourself from being abused or misused or used too much?
When you deal with human beings, they bring their business with them, their as they say, their baggage or their luggage. They bring it with them. So what you get is whatever their thing was, and this is why it's very important when people, other priests begin to nurture godchildren or consider godchildren, they really have to look at having them at least become aware of the criminal things that they do to themselves and the criminal acts that they commit against other people. And that they need to iron and know that, so that when it shows up, they can correct it. So that people who have bad tempers and bad manners and things like that, people who tend to abuse people either physically or verbally or emotionally, that you're aware of that before you get initiated, because it only makes it worse. Once you become initiated, all those things that you have, that you walk with, that you're born with or you're born into, they become multiplied.
They amplify?
Amplified, I mean, really.
Well, why is that? It's just the nature of the religion? Or
it's the nature of human beingness and the power of the Ashe. What happens with the power of the Ashe, you're being elevated. And being elevated, all those things that you did not handle in this process will actually show up. They'll start to show up. So if you were a bully, you'll be a bigger bully in the end. You know, you're a bully, just a bully. You know, and there are people like that. You know, people who are bullies, and then people who think that they have the only thought. And there's so many of those people. So a lot of times what you have, like currently, because the foundation isn't grounded. And what you have to look at, and we don't because we're so caught up in the magic of the religion. What?
Well, you're using the word magic in what sort of sense?
Magic and the flavor, the beauty of the religion, the magic, what the possibilities are. To be able to alternate, we're somebody looking at that we're not looking at the person who was supposed to be training us. It's a lifetime contract, with the person that initiates you. It can be a lifetime contract, usually is. And that person may be abusing you.
Well, isn't there a mechanism that if that happens, is there other people in the hierarchy or spread out that can correct that or address that?
There was a time when there was, and it was called the Ogboni Society. There were the police of the police of the union. What happened was that as we got closer to being corrupted by the European systems, and we chose to, this is a group, and it's obvious to me at this point, people chose to do their own thing. It's like everything else. They've taken, like any other religion that you can imagine, they've taken what they wanted to have, and have been able to make everything else what they wanted to produce out of what they said, as opposed to knowing that that's the law.
So it's like a corporation. They say, "Oh no, we can police ourselves. Don't worry about this."
Right, and we really can't. We really can't police ourselves if we don't do a good job. A lot of the clients that I have come from places, come from other houses. Houses being where you're born into a house.
When you say clients, what does that mean?
My client, people that come to me for consultation.
Oh, okay.
And when they come to me to fix it. So those people, a lot of them come from other houses. But out of courtesy, in my tradition, you have to call the person's godparent and tell them that they're there and tell them that they're for. And the godparent has to, I usually do that with people that come to me from other places. Excuse me. I call the godparent first, and I have them tell them right there. I speak to the godparent whether or not it's okay for me to read them or not.
Well, isn't that a form of, I don't say policing, but a form of monitoring? Or
well, see, that's because I'm traditional. I come from a very traditional house. And in my house, things are done a very traditional way. And this is part of the tradition that before you consult somebody who comes from another house, you need to have a conversation with that person's godparent, if they have a godparent. Sometimes they're in a house, they don't have a godparent.
Okay, well, I don't want to be all negative or anything like that. Not that this is negative, this is truth. But where do you see the religion now that it's recognized? Where do you see it projecting, going? What path do you see it beyond? Do you see any corrective measures? Well, where do you see it going? Let's say in the next 10, 5, whatever years.
I say in 5, 10 years, if it's not corrected, if it's not, because it's really in a state of flux for me right now. As I look at the other younger priests, and I'm not an old priest by any definition. He says so chronologically, but as a priest, 25 years there's no time. I'm in a company of priests for 40, got 40, 50 years, and my sister has 35 years. My godfather has 40-something years, and he's one of the first, from that first generation.
In the States, in the northern hemisphere.
Yeah, in North America. He's one of the first. He's from that first generation. Him, John's actually, John, first, second generation.
Talking about John Mason?
Yeah.
Great scholar.
Mason, yeah. The other ones that are older than John, they're gone. Like my godfather Jose Manuel, who was the oriente at my Ocha, he's gone. He had 50 years of Ocha, more than 50 years of Ocha. But he's from Cuba, But he was very good with the African American groups who use them as an orientation, as an officiator.
Well, I don't want to go too far on this, but in fact, let me ask you that. Since now your line comes through Cuba, with the advent, now getting sort of weirdly political, with the advent of the Cuban relationships with the United States opening up, will that impact any sort of sense on
sure it is. But again, we're dealing with the human thing. You know, how people feel about Cuba, how Cubans feel about us. There was in the beginning the whole language thing. As time of that, now you got to deal with the Cubans. You have to deal with the Nigerians who are now here. You know,
en masse.
En masse. You know, the Brazilians are coming up. You know, coming through. So
that's the Candomblé influence.
Candomblé, and where does it all sit? You know, I've sat with all these people at some point. And they all have their different ideas about what's supposed to be happening. You know, what's going on traditionally. There have been some new things brought in. There have been some things that have been totally, like, the Cubans at some point would not allow Babalaos to make other priests.
That's my phone, don't worry about it.
Because the other priests, Babalaos only made other Babalaos. Now Babalaos are making priests of the Orisha. It's an interesting development. Now we're making, giving people Orishas that we've never had before, you know, here. People going somewhere else and getting them and bringing them back and, you know, giving them to other people. Particular Orisha, the Ajay. People are now receiving Ajay.
But the Ajays aren't Orishas, are they? Aren't they more forces? They're almost like the policemen or the stormtroopers.
They're the Ajay are the Ajay, you know. And there's Ajay Shaluga, which is one thing, which is an Orisha. And you have the Ajay, and people are receiving Ajay, as I understood that. This is like 20 years ago, and I'm like, I don't have that. You know, I don't have that particular Orisha. That Orisha is not in my line that I know about. I don't know anything about. I know what Sorunga is. I know what it is, but I don't have it. You know, and I'm a child of Ochun myself. I don't have that. And they said, well, you should, because you're a child of Ochun, you should have that. I have to debate that because when I talk to anybody about lineage, they don't know. They don't like receiving Ajay. But there's a lineage in Cuba that receives Ajay. And a person approached me, but I'm like, I don't know what that is. I know what it is conceptually, but I don't know to physically receive Ajay. How do you do that? You know, how do you do that? Because Ajay is not just one Ajay, not that one thing. Ajay is many who were elder women. You know, it's a woman's cult.
Okay, well, thanks a lot for this. Oof. Heavy.